Okay, folks, so we started. So, I'm sure you all know Win Harper. He's been around for a little while. Probably don't remember Beth. Best songs in town.
My sailors were bad either. How are you?
And then this lady over here with the purple dress with the long hair.
That's me.
Is Amberle Kelly. She's our town historian. Jim helped picking some videos.
Change my shirt.
So,
Because I wasn't sure if
I did.
And his wife did.
And name's the young one in the flowered shirt.
Yes.
Okay.
Our little secret.
Well, thank you for inviting us back here. We were here 2 years ago and gave a presentation, and probably 2 years before that, so I guess every 2 years we come back. We mentioned Amberle Kelly. We did a 150th anniversary of the schoolhouse last Saturday, and Amberle organized that thing, ran it, and it was actually perfection. And, we had a large turnout, a lot of moving parts, and she kept it all going, and she can get bossy.
Direct. I'm direct.
When we first hired her, you know, the average age besides Amberle is probably 75. And she's 37, 36,
Yeah, 37, good. Yeah.
So we told her that there's a good chance that she could be town historian for 50 years. Ruth Clark went into her middle 80s, Dan Robinson was middle 80s. So we actually planted a time capsule. She might remember where it is. That'd be very helpful. Well, tonight's presentation is going to be mostly coming from Ruth Clark's book. She wrote this 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
20. I was studying that today, but I already forgot.
But it's really, if you want to read the history of Middlesex, and it has Flying Valley here also. But this latest edition, we have an index in the back, so if you have somebody's name, you could look up their name and take it to the page they're on. So here's the deal. Normally $25. Normally $25. But if you become a member, or if you are a member now, the member's $10. You get a quarterly newsletter. We'll put your name, your email address on our MailChimp, so we'll send information to you. You can get the newsletter either by email or by regular mail. It's $10, and we'll sell this book to you for $20. So if you join tonight, the deal is only good tonight. If you don't do it. So anyway, the local history is very important. You know, it sort of forms a community. I remember about, I would say 20 years ago, it was 30-some years ago. Everything gets kind of bunched into decades now. I did my family tree, and it was interesting because I didn't have a real good feel for my family because my dad's parents got divorced in 1920. I think there were 3 couples got divorced in 1920, and one was my dad's parents. So I was able to, and he didn't know much about his parents, didn't talk about them very much, and so I was able to make that gap and connect everybody. I had a better sense of who I am, a better sense of my family. I go back to 1790 to David Harper and Mary Harper, and through them, through marriage, I get back to the Mayflower, the Revolutionary War, and all that stuff. But knowing your local history, it's your values, it's the community, and it's important that we know it now and pass it on down to future generations. If there's anybody out here, anybody under the age of 50 here?
This story.
I'm not going to ask that question anymore because she's the only person. Got to do a little advertisement first of all. We have Jim, Elaine, Beth, Regina, and about 2 other people, and that's all we have volunteering right now, and we're getting older. Every Wednesday morning we meet, we catalog, record the local history. We have over 300 binders, 3 written binders like this. And I'm going to show you a couple of these tonight because they're about Vine Valley. And we have about thousands of family trees. And Nancy Elwell put those onto the family tree maker, and so we have them on a computer now. So I brought several of those for people who lived in Vine Valley. And if you're long-term family in Vine Valley, we'd like to have yours update the information we have. If you speak here yesterday, 100 years from now, you'll be a long-term member, a long-term resident. So we'd like to have your information too. So you look at those also. Our mission, preserve the past for the future. Besides all this stuff we do with cataloging the history, we get involved in a lot of, like, Memorial Day Parade, which goes from Gorham, Rushville, and Middlesex. We're involved in that every year. Citizens Appreciation Day, which is coming up on the 3rd of August, and we're honoring Don Lydiard, Willie Risteck, and Dan Robeson. So 3rd of August at 2 o'clock in the fire hall. We also have Seneca Heritage Day. We always have Peter Jemison speak there. He's going to speak about the Iroquois creation story. And so that's on the 30th of August at the schoolhouse. Anybody come to the 150th anniversary? Anybody come there? Okay. I just wanted, we had a porta potty delivered. They put it right in front of the building.
It's still there.
Yeah,
It's still there.
Yeah, they have.
We couldn't figure out why they put it both the places. It's a big field.
Yeah.
It's right there. People try to take pictures and not include the porta potty, but that's okay. All right. So we also do classes. In April, we had a class on in May, the Loyalist Refugee Crisis of 1779. Bob Minster, I think, Bob Minster walked in? No. He gave a class on the the airport at Ferris Hills Men's Club. We have a Facebook page, we have MailChimp, we have a newsletter, and we have a YouTube channel. And we have these many videos on there right now. We're going to add another one shortly. You can go there, it's free. I think the URLs are there. How many people know what a URL is? I'm very proud of myself. I got a QR code for the Facebook page, and at the first meeting I was at, board member said, "Look at this, I got a QR code," and I think only 2 people had smartphones. That was the older generation. This younger generation, we got all that stuff.
We ask our grandchildren.
All right. So, if you want to volunteer, you can stop in any Wednesday morning between 9 and noon. You can talk to any of us here today if you want to volunteer. If you're a snowbird, if you leave here in the wintertime and come back, we can use you for half a year. It's recording the history, and it's sometimes tedious work, but we got a lot of things to cover, and since we got a very active historian, she's brought more work to us.
We also have cookies Wednesdays. Homemade cookies.
Waiting for you to mention that. Mention that.
One of the interesting things that, we all did research, right?
What?
Well, we all did research. But I'm leafing through this particular H7A, which is an index, it says on it, but it's not really. And I go through here, and I come to page 39. And it says in here, Vine Valley, senior paper, April 9th, 1976. And it's written by Dave Adam, our supervisor. And actually, it's a very good description of Vine Valley, and it just, it looks like it's actually typed on a typewriter. So those kind of things you find, which is really surprising. I haven't talked to Dave about that yet, but I want to make sure he knows about that. So today, what we're going to do, Amberle is going to talk a little about the brief history of Vine Valley and the Indian burial site. Elaine's going to talk about the deaths on the steamboat and the Valley Garden Club. Jim might talk about his family's steamboat, or not.
We haven't got time.
And Beth is going to talk about the Robinson story because she has a little bit of knowledge about that. And then I'll probably talk about some historical buildings if we have time in the area, ones you may or may not know about, and just to give you an idea of what you have going. So, without any further ado, Amberle, you want the lectern? Take my glasses. So.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to today's history chat. If we haven't met, I'm Amberle Kelly, and I've had the honor of serving as the Middlesex Town Historian for just over a year. And what a year it has been. Digging into our past has been nothing short of awe-inspiring. The more I learn, the more I realize that our small town has a truly big history. Today, I'd like to take you back in time to Vine Valley, a special little corner of Middlesex with a rich and fascinating story. Let's start millions of years ago, yes, that far back, when a shallow sea covered what we now know as Western New York. That's why we often find small sea creature fossils in the area. Then came the glaciers. Over thousands of years, massive sheets of ice carved deep valleys into the land. As the glaciers began to melt, the water filled in those valleys, forming the 11 beautiful lakes we call the Finger Lakes. The 6 major and most famous lakes are Canandaigua, Keuka, Seneca, Cayuga, Owasco, and Skinny Atlas. According to native legend, the lakes were created by an impression of the hand of the Great Spirit, making this land sacred. When the early settlers arrived, peaceful indigenous communities lived along the lake's shores. But in 1779, during the American Revolution, General Andrew Sullivan led an expedition through this region, destroying native homes and crops. Women and children fled to the formerly Squaw Island, now renamed Skano Island, meaning peace in the Seneca language. After the war, soldiers who had passed through remembered the beauty and fertility of this land and came back to settle their own families here and build a beautiful life. On July 15, 1789, Thomas Maxwell sold the land that is now Middlesex to Arnold Potter. The deed included approximately 42,230 acres. In 1797, the town Augusta was formed. But when officials recognized there was already another Augusta in New York, the name was changed to Middlesex in 1808. The western boundary of Middlesex is, of course, Canandaigua Lake. Nestled between South Hill, the highest point in Middlesex, and legendary Bear Hill, runs a little stream called Boat Brook, which empties into the lake. Right where this stream meets the water is the small hamlet we now call Vine Valley. As Vine Valley flourished, families arrived by covered wagon. Hillsides were cleared, farms were built, and agriculture took root. Early on, the area was called Hawley Point and Middlesex Landing, especially as steamboats began delivering goods and connecting communities around the lake. Eventually, with grapes thriving on the surrounding hillsides, the name Vine Valley stuck, and it couldn't be more fitting. The hamlet blossomed into a vibrant little community, complete with a general store, a hotel, a church, and a one-room schoolhouse known as District Number 4. Now let's talk about the steamboat era, which played a huge role in shaping the valley and its settlement. The first steamboat, Lady of the Lake, launched in 1827. She was used for lake excursions and even had a soda bar on board for her passengers. Over the years, several steamboats cruised Canandaigua Lake, carrying not just passengers, but freight, groceries, produce, and mail. Some vessels would even supply entertainment to its passengers. At one point, there were 76 steamboat stops around the lake. It's a lot. If you raised a white flag at the end of your dock, that meant you had passengers to be picked up. It even became a bit of a race. 2 boats might see the same flag and rush to be the first to the dock to collect that fare. There's one story noting that 2 boats had docked at the same location when they saw a carriage arriving with a woman and her infant. One captain took the child, the other the woman's suitcase. Distressed, the woman of course went with her child and did not receive her suitcase until she reached her destination. One longtime Canandaigua Lake resident recalls that her mother would phone a store in Canandaigua and a steamboat would leave the groceries on her dock for collection. Kind of similar to DoorDash via steamboat in the mid-1800s. In the autumn, the boats would often be filled with local produce and lumber. Crates of berries, peaches, pears, grapes, and barrels of apples would fill the decks of the steamers. Produce would be unloaded in Canandaigua to be transported on ice cars to Philadelphia and Boston. In 1898, Charles Robeson recalled 3 steamboats operating on the lake, the Analinda, Agarita, and Oriana. Mr. Robeson stated that sometimes as many as 10 tons of grapes packed in pony baskets were shipped in one day. That's a lot. The mail would also come in by boat and be dispersed between Vine Valley and Rushville, where it would then make its way to Middlesex Center. The grape industry truly began here with Azariah Younglove, one of the first to experiment with the crop. He was successful, and as such, others followed. Soon, Vine Valley was a hub of small farms specializing in various crops and hardworking families. As word spread about the lake's beauty, vacationers began arriving, and small cottages started popping up along the shore. Many would flock to this area to enjoy their summer boating, fishing, and relaxing in its prime beauty. Telephone lines began making their way to Middlesex, with the main operator located in Rushville. At one point, the only phone in Vine Valley was inside the Robeson store, and neighbors could stop by to use it when needed. That sense of shared community still echoes here today. Education was, of course, a priority even in those early years. In 1812, New York legislature divided the state into school districts with boundaries, which largely remained unchanged until centralization during the 1900s. District number 4 served the local Vine Valley community and was originally located at the corner of Newell and South Vine Valley Road, where it still stands today as a private home. The school likely had split log benches, a wood stove for heat during the cold months, and outhouses. Students and teachers would supply the firewood and would carry in their water for the day. Alice Elwell also mentions of a branch school in what we now call Indian Village, though we have not been able to confirm that yet in the records. In 1935, District Number 4 closed for good, and children were transported to and from Middlesex Valley School by Charles Stern and Cecil Newell. Other schools in the area include one at Overacres Corners and District Number 8 on South Hill. In September 1916, a teacher named Juanita Underwood signed a contract to teach for 36 weeks at District Number 8. That's your grandma. I knew that name sounded familiar. So I know I've heard a story about her. This came with a weekly salary of $11, which was paid by the end of each month. So that was a check less than $50 for the month. The Vine Valley Post Office was established as early as 1866, originally located inside the Hawley boarding house with Azariah Younglove. Is it Azariah? Azariah Younglove as postmaster. I've been struggling with how to pronounce that all day, so I apologize if I'm wrong. In a note dated August 19, 1866, it is stated that, quote, "We have got a post office established here at Mr. Younglove's. We get our mail 3 times a week, so please direct your mail to Vine Valley, Yates County, New York." By 1887, Vine Valley received daily mail from Rushville. When Younglove retired, the post office moved to the home of Theodore and Flora McCombs, who served as postmaster and postmistress until rural delivery began in 1900. They had a large sign on their home that distinguished that dwelling as the Vine Valley Post Office. That home is still believed to be standing at the bend of the road and is possibly still occupied by her descendants. The Methodist faith came to the area in 1797 when William Colbert, a circuit rider, first preached in the log home of Michael Pierce, located on what is now Route 245. A log church was built in 1810 near Overacker Corners, later replaced in 1836 by a larger frame church with family pews with doors and balconies on 3 sides. In a meeting held on April 20th, 1891, at Green Hall, which was likely the upstairs of the Robeson store, Vine Valley began making their own plans to build a church that would become the Vine Valley Methodist Episcopal Church. Trustees were elected, and the next annual meeting date was decided. Land was donated by Mr. and Mrs. M.F. Hawley, who owned the Vine Valley Hotel, for the symbolic price of $1. The Vine Valley Methodist Church was completed in just a few months, with its cornerstone laid in June and dedication held in September 1891. A meeting of the trustees was held where it was decided that, quote, "It is the intention of the Board of Trustees of this church to grant the use of the building to any and all Orthodox denominations having members in Vine Valley when not using it themselves." The building still stands today, right across the road, 30 by 52 feet, with an 8-foot by 8-foot bell tower on the right front corner, 4 windows along each side and 1 large window at the front. It was wired for electricity in 1941, and in 1980 the community applied to have it listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Outside of the addition of electricity and plumbing, there have been no major changes made to the structure since its conception in 1891. In 1942, a lot to the west of the church was purchased from Mrs. Mathony, who was the owner of Vine Valley Willow Grove, and was planted with memorial trees. The women of the church have always played a major role, holding countless fundraisers and raising money through bake sales, selling brooms, and even publishing the Vine Valley Home Cookin' Cookbook in 1987, which I have brought today if you'd like to take a look. In 1904, Theodore McCombs discovered an Indian burial ground near the base of Bear Hill. When road construction began on Overacker Corner Vine Valley Road, now known as North Vine Valley Road, in the 1920s, workers unearthed several remains. In 1921, Dr. Parker of the Rochester Museum spent over 2 months excavating the site while living in tents near the newly discovered burial ground. He found various burial types and ceremonial items, including remains of tree and scaffold mortuary disposals, bundle burials, and flexed burials. It is then that they discovered a half-sitting-up Indian with a pipe in his hand, and remains of fire and feast pits and various artifacts relating to Indian culture and history. The relics that were discovered were cataloged and sent to the Rochester Museum. In 1929, Glenn McCombs built a rock garden on the burial site. Though it is now overgrown, a sign still marks its sacred and significant place. In 1953, a group of residents decided to build a community house to support their church's activities and offer a gathering place for neighbors. The Vine Valley Community House was completed in 1957, built largely by local volunteers and funded through grassroots efforts. Since then, it has hosted countless social events, church suppers, coffee hours, ice cream socials, community dinners, and more. In 2004, a small lending library based on a good faith loan system was added, and volunteers continue to care for and improve the space. In just 2 years, the community house will celebrate its 70th anniversary. So we'll have to do it again. Before we close, I want to honor someone else whose name is woven into Vine Valley history, Hazel Dinehart Robeson. Hazel joined the Vine Valley Methodist Church in 1918, serving as a pianist and organist under 18 pastors over 64 years. Wow. Wow. She was also the last teacher at the Overacker Schoolhouse and continued teaching after centralization. After 50 years of service to the church, she was gifted an engraved pewter plate, and on September 7th, 1986, she was honored for 64 years of service. A dinner was held at the community house following her honor. She was also presented with several gifts, mainly pertaining to music, as that was her heart, and many past pastors sent letters of appreciation. She was and will always be remembered as an active and dedicated member of our community. Thank you all so much for taking this journey with me today. Vine Valley is more than just a scenic spot. It's a place built on resilience, hard work, and connection. The stories may be old, but the heart of this place is very much alive. I hope you leave today with a little more appreciation for the generations who came before us and a little more pride in the place we call home. Thank you.
Was it Hazel Dan's
You're up next.
aunt or something like that?
Yeah.
This is it?
So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, this is the end.
Yeah. This place was built in 1957. It's had a tornado, car,
Yeah,
a
tree.
tree.
Yes.
And two of those were when Gordy was president. Just saying. But it's really a nice facility here, and I really appreciate it. Good place to have, coffee and cookies. Anyway,
Okay.
Elaine's going to talk about steamboat
Something.
accident.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
When we first started throwing ideas around of who wants to talk about what, it came up, steamboats and ferries were one thing, and I almost raised my hand, and I said, no, that's a big subject, which Amberle covered very well. But a story has stuck with me that I will tell you about, that you may know about. The first, Fred Harder was our first, he was a founder of the Middlesex Heritage Group. He became the town historian in 1971. He lived on West Avenue in Middlesex, which most of us call the back road. But it's West Avenue, and his family, his daughter Judy was one of my best friends. And just saw her the other day. She lives in Texas now. But I asked her about her dad's interest in history, and he always was interested in history, but he did it at home. He had boxes and books of things. He worked at the Veterans Administration early in his career, and then he worked at Garlock in Palmyra for many years, and that was quite a commute from Middlesex out to Palmyra. And he retired in 1977, so then he was able to spend a lot of his time doing research. And this was in the days before computers. He did a lot of transcribing census records, little file cards. We still have them. And people remember jotting all that down. I'm not sure where he got the census records, but he did, and painstakingly recorded all of them. And in his own home. And finally, the town hall was renovated in, what year? The Heritage Group was chartered in 1982. 1991 was when they redid the town hall and put the town offices in there and gave the Heritage Group the office, what used to be the stage area. Some of us remember, maybe Beth does, I remember. The town hall was used when there was a Middlesex High School, Middlesex School in the village. It was used for basketball games and the plays, and graduations, and the Halloween parties. It's about the only thing I really remember, walking across the stage in my costume with my friend Judy Harder. We usually dressed alike. But so he was able to move a lot of his records then to the little office that we still have that's in the stage area. After he died in 1993, that room was dedicated to Fred Harder's memory. So I'm going to read a report he gave at an early annual meeting about a project that he initiated in the summer. This is his writing. In the summer of 1981, members of the Middlesex Heritage Group copied the names and dates from all the gravestones in the cemetery that's right there in town on the hillside, very steep. We still have the sheet, the yellow legal pads. I think 6 or 8 volunteers were with them, going on the rows and counting things down. Afterwards, while indexing these names and dates on file cards, it was found that 4 persons had died on the same day. Frederick Aldridge died September 30th, 1857, age 16 years, 6 months, and 16 days. Also inscribed on his gravestone, it said, drowned while passing from the shore in a skiff to the boat J. Wood. And Joseph Wood, I think, was one of the names of one of the steamboats. Henry L. Green died September 30th, 1857, age 19 years. Thomas W. Perryman, September 30th, 1857, age 18 years, 9 months and 16 days. Reverend Jacob E. Wager died September 30th, 1857, age 58 years, 2 months and 20 days. And he wrote, the above information caused your historian to believe that a terrible tragedy had occurred on September 30th, 1857, that it would be of interest to the town's history to investigate the matter. He searched, he went to Ontario County Historical Society in Canandaigua. This was in 1981, he was doing this. He went to Penn Yan, he checked in Naples, and he really wasn't able to find much information. And there were microfilms that I think he finally found one. So he finally found Ontario County Republican Times, Canandaigua, October 1st, 1857. This was the headline. Fatal calamity. 4 men drowned in Canandaigua Lake. Steamboat Joseph Wood, Middlesex Landing, September 30th, 9:30 a.m., 1857. Dear Sir, Editor of the County Times, Ontario County Times, a heart-rending calamity has just occurred at this place. The steamboat Joseph Wood, on her excursion from the head of the lake, which I guess is Naples, to the fair at Canandaigua, was taking on passengers at this landing with a small boat, which, the wind being fresh, was swamped with 6 passengers and the boatman in it. And before assistance could be rendered, 4 of the party were drowned. Their names were, well, the names I just read. Aldridge was lost in attempting to swim to the shore and had nearly reached it, but finally sank exhausted. The other 3 were lost in attempting to cling to the boat. The boatman floated ashore on the seat of the skiff, and the other 2 who were saved were picked up by a boat from the shore. Planks were thrown from the steamer, and she put about in a fruitless endeavor to render the unfortunate men assistance. We had no small boat belonging to the steamer, except the one from which they were lost, and the wind was so strong that we drifted so far from them that swimming to them was not to be thought of, although several had their coats off to make the attempt. It is a sad business. E.B. Powell. So we know about that. We probably wouldn't have known it if Fred hadn't done his little cards and figuring out and checking. Today you probably can, I haven't checked, you probably can go on the internet and find the old newspaper. But a very sad thing that happened apparently right here. What started out as this Methodist minister, 58 years old, taking some kids to the fair in Canandaigua. Ended up badly, for sure. So, my next part of that story is about my husband Jim and I visited the cemetery in 2008 at the request of Ruth Clark, who was then the historian. Ruth was my first cousin. She was 20 years older than I, but our mothers were sisters. And she drafted me to work at the Heritage Group when we moved back to this area. She wanted to create a map of that cemetery. And she didn't feel herself up to going up into the cemetery on the hillside, and I'm not sure I would today, but we followed Fred's old maps, the people that signed, and checked. Some of the stones, of course, were gone from 1981 to 2008. Things have changed, but a lot of them are still there. We found the ones who died and drowned over here. She was working on her her book, whatever we have here. And, well, when we moved back here, we were right down the road from where Ruth and her husband Lee lived. And so Jim got involved with helping her add some pictures to her book. She had a little computer there she was working on, but she wasn't really sure what she was doing totally, but she had saved a lot. And I don't know how long she'd been working on it, but she finished it in 2010. And we've just had several copies we've made. We've reprinted it. It's a bestseller. Thanks to our publicist
We
here.
sold 9 at the
Right.
150th anniversary.
And she has a section on the steamboats with drawings of the steamboats in there and a whole lot of other things. We just refer to it as Ruth's book. It's called, what is it called?
History and Legends.
History and Legends of Middlesex. It's Ruth's book. So, okay, leave the steamboats behind and all. Another piece of history I'd like to share is about, with the Vine Valley connection, is about the Garden Club. One of our many binders. We have so many binders that you just want to come and, oh, that's not good. Oh, right here. And browse. You know, if you want to come see what we have and you don't have to work right away. But it's fun. You just find so much. This particular binder says Middlesex organizations. We have Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts in here. We have the Conservation Club. I think we have other volumes on the Conservation Club too. So this one happens to be Valley Garden Club. So in, wait a minute, I gotta get my cheat sheet. Yeah. My mother, Sophia Emerson, and my dad were married in 1934, and they moved into their new house, which is across from the Baptist church when you come downtown. My dad's father was minister at the Baptist church in 1919 to 1929, and this new home was built across the way. And in January of 1935, they were newlyweds. There was this meeting, and the headline said, this was in the Chronicle Express opinion, "Flower lovers to meet, May organize club." Mrs. P.K. Stoddard of Potter, now my husband is from Italy Valley, and he would remind me that P.K. Stoddard and his wife actually lived in Italy Valley, not in Potter. Right. Mrs. P.K. Stoddard and Mrs. F.M. Chafee of Middlesex are sponsoring a meeting for flower growers at Mrs. Chafee's home. Who knows who Mrs. F.M. Chafee was? Or who F.M. Chafee was?
I know F.M. Chafee.
You know. Yeah. Dr. Festus Chafee. Actually delivered me, delivered Jim, probably delivered, I don't know, not you. I guess not me. He brought in, there was one newspaper article that said I don't know, it was like 3,000 babies or something. It wasn't that many, but he did deliver a lot of babies. And they lived right in he had his office right in Middlesex, across from the town hall, next to the store. But somebody might know this. Their summer place was right down here, next to Robinson's store, Dr. Chafee.
That might be our house, our cottage, because
Okay.
we were told when we
Okay.
purchased our cottage that it used to be a doctor's office, and it's very,
There was another doctor that lived around it too,
okay.
Dr. Robinson, I think, was another doctor, but his was right. I visited him when I broke my arm in the summer, because he wasn't in Middlesex at his office. We had to come over to Vine Valley and get my arm. I guess I went off to Canandaigua or something, riding my bike and fell off. Anyway, they had a meeting in January, so I'm assuming this was at the house in Middlesex. On Tuesday afternoon, anyone interested in the study of flowers and their culture is cordially invited. If sufficient interest is shown, a garden club will be organized that afternoon, and it indeed was. 17 men and women were present, not just women, men and women. And they had their first regular meeting, my mother hosted. So she wrote somewhere later on, she was a newlywed, and she thought, these people, well, it's kind of like how somebody here may feel, all these older people. Well, anyway. Oh, the naming of the club, that's important. There's no written account of the naming of the club, but my recollection from my mother is they called it the Valley Garden Club because there were people from Vine Valley and from Middlesex Valley and from Italy Valley. So I think it was a compromise of some sort. There's still a lot of people, it still exists 90 years later. There was a couple, Mary, you were there today. I saw your picture. There was a meeting today, a lunch and an activity today. And 90 years, that makes it, I got that 1935, yeah, 2025, that's 90 years. But some people still think it's the Vine Valley Garden Club.
Where is the garden? Do they have a plot?
No. It was individuals, it has changed a lot. I mean, they used to have speakers from Cornell or from Geneva, the experiment station, or they would go to the Rose Gardens in Newark. But they shared their knowledge with each other.
Gotcha.
And they had poems. There's a lot of they have these really cute program books that they had every year, and they met once a month at individual homes. There is a picture in here. Mrs. Robeson was a member, and there's a picture, I think it's at her house, of their annual picnic. I'm in the picture. Kids could come along. And anyway, the club donated a sign out here in 1979, and it was, I guess it got run down, and it was replaced just a few years ago. But if you look at it, it says Valley Garden. That's my mission. It's been my mission. One of my missions. Okay, I want to conclude. I grew up in Middlesex, and Jim and I were married there in 1967. But we've lived in Sunnyvale, California, Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and Endwell, New York. So wherever we've lived, I've gotten involved in local history because it's interesting to find out the stories behind. So I want to say you don't have to be a native of Middlesex to be involved with learning about the history. And our president is a very good example of that. He's amazed at some of the things we come up with about who used to live there and everything. But
I like what people tell you, go by the turn right where the Smiths used to live.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We know. So I'd encourage you to come on over and just take a look at our things in Middlesex on a Wednesday morning, and we can even be open by special appointment.
We have homemade cookies, they keep bringing homemade cookies.
I don't like to mention the homemade cookies too much because my turn comes around later. Oh, it's not a week again. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sort of an interloper. I grew up in western Pennsylvania, and I spent 26 years in the Marine Corps, then I bummed around for about 20 years, and I got here. So, but one of the nice things, there was a film in here by Clifford DeWitt, right? Clifford DeWitt? And it's from 1947, 48, around that time frame. And we showed that at a meeting one time. There was like 20 people there. We had to stop the film about every 2 seconds. Well, that's my uncle. You know, it was so filled with life to see people see their relatives and stuff like that, identify them with. And I grew up, I tell people I grew up in a small town in western Pennsylvania. Small town had 44,000 people. It seemed like it was small. Then you get to a town that has 1,300. I now know small. I can identify that. Anyway, Beth, you ready?
I guess.
Everybody knows Beth, right?
Yep.
Beth's sons.
Yes.
How did you make that 1 month? 300 or something?
It's a lot. For a small operation, yes, it was a lot. So I am Beth. My maiden name is Armitage. I was born and raised just over the hill up the road towards Potter. And I'm one of 8 children. And my dad was a World War II Navy veteran who hated boats. So he didn't go anywhere by boat. So, let's see, I'm really from Bath. I mean, my husband was from Bath and somehow we ended up there when we got married. And the Robeson store. Dan Robeson used to call me his kissing cousin because we're only related by marriage. But his dad was brother to my Aunt Caroline Robeson, Underwood. I am on the Underwood side of the family. So Caroline Robeson married Hillman Underwood, who everyone knew as Boney. He was my Uncle Boney, my grandmother's brother. So that's how I ended up, sort of, beginning to, I've always loved the Robeson store. Those of you who are locals, when I was in elementary school, we used to catch the bus and come over to Vine Valley to learn how to swim. And when I started reading up about the Robeson store, it was always a private entity. I mean, the Robesons owned the store and owned the beachfront, but they never were exclusive. They always invited the town and anyone who wanted to use that beach out of the goodness of their hearts, really. And it was only after like the 1980s when the state started enforcing requirements about lifeguards and, all of that regulations that they just could not sustain themselves. So that's when the town bought the store, thankfully, because it was on the market for more than a year for $85,000 in the 80s and nobody offered for it. And to me, that's amazing. And so the town finally sent out a referendum, and we have a copy of that in one of the binders. And it asked the townspeople, are you willing to, and this, purchase this property so we can keep access to the lake? And as it turned out, there's only like $22,000 that was not covered by grants and funds and all those other things. So the town did buy the store, and they have put a lot of money into it. They lifted it up off the foundations, and it's a brand new foundation, and it's insulated, and it's painted, and it's pretty well taken care of. And if you have never been upstairs in the store, which is an absolutely amazing space, it's all tongue and groove. The whole ceiling, all the walls, and everything in that store is original. And I remarked when we were filling up the shelves that it's like the first multi-use shelving in there, because you could move the shelves however high or low you wanted just by a simple notch in the wood. Anyway, it's an amazing space. So I think the reason I ended up in the store is I decided I needed to get in touch with my roots again, because when I was 17, I was ready to blow this joint, believe me. And I was ready to go. So, I went to college in Kentucky, and, anyway, my husband traveled around the world, or, the country for the first 10 years of our marriage, but we ended up back in Bath, of all places. So I came to the meeting because I needed to see Ruth Clark, because her husband, Lee, and my dad drove truck for this young lady's dad, Sandy Emerson. And so I needed to see Ruth and touch base with her, because my parents had both died. And so I decided, after I went to a couple of meetings, Lee Williams was there, and that was the first time I ever met Dan Robeson. I didn't even know I had a kissing cousin. So I went home, and I remember saying, gee, I really like spending time with these people. So Lee heard me, I guess, and he says, you know what? We're putting a dock down the store. What do you think about running that store? I said, oh. And my sisters and I had just happened to come down to the store, and every time we went there, it was always closed. There was nobody there. But one day, it was open because they were working on the water, on the new water at the bathroom. So we just went in. And so my sister said, wouldn't it be fun to run this store for the summer? And I said, well, yeah, it might be. And then both of my sisters disappeared. One of them said, oh, you know, I haven't retired yet. I got a couple of years till I retire. And the other one said, nuh-uh, I travel. You know, I have the money to travel. I'm not sticking around in the summer all, you know. So anyway, that's how I sort of ended up in the store, because it was like created a snowball, and it just kept, there was just no way it was stopping. So that's how we really ended up in the store, my husband and I, and I don't know. I would do it again, although I hope I don't have to. In many ways, because I do love that store. So Amberle took some of my info, but that's okay.
My apologies.
That's all right. Because I still remember when I was a kid, you know, there were still grapevines between my great-grandmother's house, who lived down the back road, just past the Emersons, actually. My grandmother's house is still there, and my great-grandmother's house is still there. And it's actually in this little handy little Yates County atlas. And this would be my great-grandma's house right here. And they used to raise Morgan horses, which I haven't, you know, there's not a lot of information about their raising Morgan horses, more their grapes and more produce and all that. We have all that kind of documentation. So this is my great-grandfather, E.R. Underwood. And we have probably 2,000 of these grape labels. Oh, I'm not kidding. I have a stack that's probably this big. And when we went to the store, people stopped in just because they wanted to talk. Because it was all about the memories. And I remember saying to Dave Charland, who was also an Emerson, who was my neighbor growing up all of my life. I said, I'm not really sure if I know what I'm doing with the store. I said, I'm not sure if I really want to do it or if it's just all about the nostalgia. And he says, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. And it was. Because my life was better because of the Robeson store and because of going there and because of Aunt Caroline was there. And I had my 10 cents or my 5 cents and I could buy a whole box of pretzels for a nickel. Or if I really wanted to get crazy, sometimes I could get 10 cents because one of 8 children, there wasn't a lot of 10 cents around. But, you know, a whole bag of candy for 10 cents. So that was that was a focus for me. And the cheese.
Oh, that's cheese.
So, and if you go in the store, you can see that the tying mechanism for the cheese wheel is still in the roof. I mean, it's still in the ceiling. And our focus, which has not been the focus recently, but that's okay. She's doing her own thing. But I just wanted a small country store back. I wanted it so if you were making a batch of strawberry biscuits that you could come and get a pound of flour, because I just thought that was important. Or you got a Bug Bites, or whatever. You know, I just wanted that kind of an atmosphere. That's why I wanted a table in there where Win used to come and have a cup of coffee and read his book once in a while. So, and actually Win was part of the reasons why we ended up at the store too, because unbeknownst to me, Win knew my brother Rick, who was an amputee, and Win ran into him and my sister-in-law on an amputee outing. So how weird is that?
Yeah.
You told me, you said, go back to Middlesex, use my name, you'll get whatever you want.
That was my brother Rick. Unfortunately is not here anymore, but. So The thing about the grapes and the industry that was here, I mean, we have all of that information, and it's pretty interesting. Yeah, the store cost the town $22,000 all told. So, and another thing that the store used to do, they used to, besides having the church services up there before the church was built, they used to do quilting bees, and they used to have square dances, and they used to have church meetings and plays, and I mean, it was the social hub besides just the, you know, where you come and get your mail. So early days, you came and got your mail. And actually, the mail counter is still in the store. And the walk-in cooler, even though it's relatively new to the store, was from the 1970s. But it is, you know, when they came to turn that baby on, all he did was put a little Freon in there, and whoosh, that thing had been sitting since the 80s, and it just fired right up. And I used to go in there when I needed to get away. And I used to sit there in the cooler. You know, it's funny, as a kid, I remember going into the store and how it seemed so dark and so cool, and so, you know, like, just after being out on the hot beach, it just seemed like it was so cool and welcoming, and it's not. It is a sweatbox. So I used to go in there too because it got pretty hot in there. Anyway, and there was the first summer that we owned the store. Well, we leased the store, so that's what, you know, we didn't own it. We just leased it from the town. Someone wanted to have their wedding reception on the second floor in the store, which was not going to happen. I mean, it's hard enough walking up the stairs, let alone walking down the stairs after a champagne toast. It just could not happen. Which, my story about Dan Robeson and Lee Williams. So, there was a light way up in the ceiling on the staircase that those two wanted to replace. But the stairs are very narrow. So, they're both over 80 at the time. They get a piece of wood to even out the stairs so they could put their ladder on the stairs, leaning against the wall. And Dan was the spotter, and Lee was up the stairs, or up this ladder. So it's perched between these two steps, and I couldn't stand to watch them do that. And so they're out there, and they're out there, and nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden there's a whoosh. Oh my God. So I went around, and they had dropped the light bulb. He's up at the end of this, it's just a straight ladder, leaned against the wall, and they dropped the light bulb. It's okay. I don't really need the light right there. So, anyway, I don't regret 1 minute, and sometimes I miss it dreadfully. I don't miss the work, but I miss the store dreadfully. So, it's a great place, and it's a beautiful place. And thank you to you, because I think you're the one that got the sign made, the plaque. So that will remain the way it should. So,
I like the way you're at.
thank you.
Real quick one, sorry, if I may, if anybody's interested, we have a ton of original Robeson store,
Yes.
cash register, the original cheese box.
Yes, the cheese
All
box, the
sorts of
register's
things
all
at
there.
town hall. Come in, I'd love to show it to you. I want people to see this stuff. We have amazing things up there.
I was gonna say that.
I'm just stealing everybody's stuff tonight. It's
I'm scared to go upstairs though, I know it's up there.
Yeah, you are.
I still have a scary spot upstairs, so yeah.
I mean, it was offered when we opened up the store again, and now it's hard to get Cuba cheese because no one delivers here. I mean, we have to go pick it up. And I really wanted penny candy, which really was not penny candy anymore. But Dan's grandson, Jack, who was just a little guy at the time, just like 7 or 8 years old, and he used to come in almost every day with his pocket full of change. And he used to go over to the candy counter and he used to see how much it was, and he'd go over to the table by the coffee machine and he'd put down the candy and how much change it took. And then he'd see he had money left and he'd go back into each little pile where was one little candy item, and then he'd bring all of his money and all of his candy up, and then I would say, do you have any money for the tax? Oh! You know, he never brought money for tax, and he knew it, the little scamp. He knew I had this, you know, because people just threw their change in this penny cup or whatever, so he knew I was going to pay his tax for it. But it was so funny, he would just sort out everything in these little piles.
Dan might have been good for that anyway. It'll cover that.
Well, that's okay.
All right, so I got a couple things. Of course, everybody stole my material. So, everybody know about the post office, right? And Ruth's book, that's on page 38. You know there was a hotel here at one time? The Willow Grove Hotel? That's on page 160. Actually, Virginia. Trying to get you to buy the book. Virginia Matheny, who was, I guess she ran the snack bar or something over there one time.
Yes.
There was a,
The hotel.
Well, she donated money for the walk of honor out there. She did a little plaque out there for her because she donated a lot of money for that. So the Vine Valley Community House, in the book, page 36, Vine Valley Church, page 79. How about, you know about the Ice House?
Tell us more.
nice house.
Thank you. In 1900s, the lake used to freeze over. And I've been told it hasn't froze over since 1977. That could be true or not, I don't know. But he used to cut 18 by 18 cubes out there, and they store it in straw or hay so they could use it in the summertime. So there's an ice house down by the Robeson store, somewhere around there, right? Okay.
It's directly
We
to
don't
the
have that.
south
We-
of
we-
it. I
what's
do
that?
believe it, directly to the south of the store.
Yes, it's where the Scots built their, they call it
Yes.
the bunk.
Okay.
And yes, it's just on the south side of the fence.
Okay.
And they kept the original structure. They just added to it. So they did not remove it, they added to it.
Okay.
They raised it and turned it into a home.
They mentioned the Robeson store plaque. The Pomeroy Foundation, they got one for the Vine Valley Church also. A building's put on the National Register of Historic Places. They get nothing outside of the fact that they're told they're on there. A guy named William C. Pomeroy was from Syracuse, I believe. About 20 years ago, decided you have to apply for it. You send in documentation that you're on the National Register of Historic Places, and he gives you a plaque. A big sign like we have at the schoolhouse or a plaque for the wall over there. And then expanded that for other historical places. And so in 2015, we got the Robeson store plaque. We got the train station, we got other places.
The plane crash up on Italy.
I think the plane crash at Italy Hill. They actually, we got a plaque for the Pine Corners Cemetery, which has 8 Revolutionary veterans in it buried. All right, so that's pretty much what we have. Please ask any questions. We have a lot of stuff up here. Take your name and number down to put you on our list and send you emails, okay? We will not, solicit you to, right, solicit's not the right word.
Harass.
We will not harass you, okay? That's a good word. So if you have any questions, I've been here in the area 15 years. I've been on the Middlesex Heritage Group about 12 years.
Yes, a question. You mentioned the 4 boys that drowned.
Yeah.
That was the Middlesex Landing. Where was that located? Middlesex
I
Landing?
think it was right down here.
Yeah.
Middlesex,
Right
it
Where
was
the
called
dock-
Middlesex Landing before they decided to start calling it Vine Valley.
Where the dock is.
Yes.
Essentially.
So it's where the aluminum dock is now, or is it
Probably.
Right
farther
around there.
down where Nuevo Cove is?
There were, how many stops were there?
72 or 6.
Around the whole lake.
Yeah,
There were a
76,
lot of
I believe
stops.
it was.
And I
And I
believe
think the
Middlesex,
landing was here,
yeah.
where the beach is and the dock are.
Where was the hotel where the trailer park is?
Right, it's a big
Yeah.
building there. It
Oh, the big-
burned down, they rebuilt it.
Yeah.
I think it's a
Yeah.
private residence.
Willow
there.
Grove.
Yeah,
It's Willow
the,
Grove,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, the,
And old accounts about school picnics and family reunions were often at Willow Grove.
Okay.
that's one of the reasons, oh, yes.
What is the oldest structure in Middlesex today?
Good question.
We'll take your name and email address.
I would say 1820s, probably early 1820s.
I don't know.
Because you have to, so Middlesex, the center of Middlesex actually essentially burned down about 3 times before they put in a fire department. And they were on it.
Third time they started, good idea.
We decided we're not gonna let that happen again.
The house that's on the register down 245, I would bet that's the earliest.
Greek
The
You know
Greek
what-
revival.
Towards
Greek
Naples.
revival, yeah.
Yeah, what's the house? I can never remember it, but,
It's got pillars out in front of it.
yeah.
And the
But
red
in that
roof.
late
We have 3
17.
private residences on the National Register of Historic Places. The Pomeroy Foundation will not provide plaques for private residences. So we have Greek
But it's
Revival
historic.
down on 245. We have the Green Farm on South Vine Valley Road,
And the cobblestone
Cobblestone.
on town, yeah, the corner of town line.
But I think the
So-
original, that frame home, I bet, would be the earliest. I'm just,
Well, and one of
everything
the-
else burned down, so.
Look it up, that's a good question.
Well, one of the hard parts is they didn't actually start keeping records until the early 1800s. So like for instance, my house is known to be built in 1789, but there's no actual record of it until 1823. So, yeah, so it's kind of difficult to decipher what might have been built or what structure, main structure, was actually earlier than the 1820s.
And some of the Green Farm has been rebuilt so much that you can't really tell if it's.
What the main, yeah. The original
Yeah,
A
was.
quick follow-up. What would you consider to be one of the most significant historical events in the history of Middlesex?
Boy. You beat you.
I know, please, come Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Well, I collect postcards, and I think some of the fires would be.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, probably
They were
the fire about
around
1908
1900,
or.
1910.
In
was
the
some
town
fire.
hall, we have a lot of photos of
Fire.
leveled the whole town. The
Yes.
town hall was
Yeah.
there. It
Like
didn't
so,
jump the street.
Did we say, mention that was a church
The church
It was a
still
church.
standing.
originally,
Yes.
the town hall?
Yeah.
I
I think the iconic building is the Overactors Schoolhouse. And at one time, there was a whole community around there.
Yes.
And we're not sure where that went or when it went. Maybe when the train station came into Middlesex, moved, but we have no
There's no
documentation.
picture of it, yeah, we
Yeah.
know that there were 30 dwellings there,
Yeah.
including a dressmaker shop,
Yeah,
a
over
millinery,
acres,
yeah. But I would say one of my favorite historical events of Middlesex is in July 4th, 1914. It actually was July 3rd. There was a huge town celebration in Middlesex Center. And so they had the big parade. There's pictures still to this day of all the people out in the old hotel and everybody standing on the porches of the old store, well, still a standing store. And as the community events continued and there was sack races, prizes, things like that, a lightning bolt struck the train station. And as it burned, the town continued to celebrate. Exactly.
And a newspaper article said, you know, so-and-so won the three-legged races,
One
fighting
sentence.
contest. Train station burned down.
My-
One sentence, the whole article.
Train station burns down. Yeah.
Town doesn't care. Train station burned, town doesn't care.
Yeah.
Town party's on.
So a couple of things. One thing that I was curious to me when I was in the store, how many people from Canandaigua and surrounding areas did not know that Vine Valley existed? They didn't know that this is one of the public places you can get into the lake, on Canandaigua Lake. I was that way. I know, I understand that, believe me. And I don't know if you know, but we have an underground railroad house in Middlesex, which is my next project coming up.
Where is that?
What do you think?
It's right on,
245.
yeah.
Maybe.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah, they have the doors in the space under the house that would have been used. And there was also someone local that would hide them in his hearse. He was an undertaker and he would hide
That was Naples.
slaves. I'm so sorry, yes. And he would hide them in his hearse to transport them, yeah.
The house next to the fire station, how old is that? It's pretty old. Where you live, right?
Yeah.
Don't you own it?
1850.
Wow.
The town was.
It has
That'll be one of the
survived,
oldest.
it's survived all these fires.
Yeah.
Right side of the street.
Where are the railroad tracks?
Down by the town barns. It went from, basically.
Next to
from
Webster.
Westville through Middlesex, down to Naples. Right across from the Friendship House is where the trains.
Follows
Yeah.
West River, it follows the river all the way from Rushville.
With the
We put
Geneva.
there's a plaque there now.
Geneva.
There's a plaque saying the train station was here.
Yes,
so,
okay.
yeah. It's interesting, they closed the train station in 1970, I think, the whole line. And what they did was they sold the building, but wouldn't sell the property. So somebody bought the building and took it to, we think, somewhere in Rochester, did something with the wood, I don't know. But they eventually, we have pictures of them picking up the tracks, and they picked up the tracks. And that's pretty much
Yeah.
ending the railroad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that train station, there's a couple articles saying it was the nicest, after the fire, they rebuilt it about 10 years later. It was the nicest train station on the entire line. It's a very, because
So the line went from Naples to Geneva?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lehigh Valley, it was called, Lehigh Valley Railroad. Yep.
we had somebody, whose relative actually rode on that last, there we go, Beth, always Beth.
My granddad and his son, my father's brother, Vince, both worked on the Lehigh.
Yeah.
When there were passengers.
Well, they were
I
workers.
forget how many,
Yeah,
passenger trains went
Yes,
through.
yes.
People don't, and that stopped later on. And where there's a big pile of gravel or whatever right now on 364. And there's that there used to be a mill there. My dad owned that. And it was right next to the railroad tracks.
I remember when the mill was there.
They just, well, I still remember the sound of when the wheat came in the summer. It was very noisy. And things like sheep came from Montana. My dad bought and sold sheep. And they came on train from
Do something with sheep.
Montana to Middlesex. Yeah, I'm gonna do a program on sheep.
Yeah, we're gonna, sheep's on the agenda.
Yeah.
We dedicated,
Wow.
It was a big deal here.
Yeah.
when we
And
dedicated,
one other thing, I'm sorry. Wait a minute, I'm done, this
I'm
is
the
my
president,
last
right?
thing.
Are you the president?
No, one thing I know we're looking for and is a picture of the old baseball stadium, and which was down where the town barns are. And I think I have a picture of my dad in his uniform for Middlesex, and which my brother actually has, and his mitt with only fingers and no webbing. but we have not been able to find a picture of the old baseball stadium. So if any of you
I have one
run
that
into
shows
that.
it, way in the
Yeah,
background.
Yeah, I
The sheep
have one
in the
that's little
foreground.
skinny little, yeah.
Some of us, did you ever go to the baseball stadium? We weren't supposed to go there. It was falling down. I mean, Don't go there.
I don't
You know,
know.
you say to a
I
kid,
don't
"Don't
remember
go
the
there,"
baseball
what are they gonna
stadium.
do?
I just remember my dad playing.
They're gonna go there.
Beth, can I tell my story?
Okay, I'm done. Sorry, buddy.
It's probably not gonna be that interesting now. Anyway, when we dedicated the plaque, we had Russ, was it Russ Lydiard?
Ross.
Ross.
Ross Lydiard. He said he has some train memorabilia, so he brought that a train whistle. And he hooked a compressor up to it. And we're all sitting around, uh-oh. And so he wanted to hear it.
Sure.
We didn't tell the neighbors it was going to go off. Fortunately, the town supervisor at the time, Bob Mulcher, was there, and some woman came out of the house saying, my dog's going crazy, blah, 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 blah. But it was loud. I was surprised, that, hadn't heard train whistle in a long time, but you hook a compressor up to something.
You could hear
We're
the
going to be
train
around for a
whistles.
while. If you want to go up and look at the stuff we have up here, we can answer questions. If you want to come buy a book, you can do that if you want to. We take cash. And we thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, yeah.